Welcome to a world of learning, wonder, and discovery. Together, we'll make every idea simple, exciting, and memorable. Because every section reveals something new, and enjoy every moment of this learning adventure. Subscribe, like, and comment. Let's begin.
Welcome back, students. Let us continue our journey, and today we turn to one of the most beautiful themes of all, the quest for knowledge and the world of education in early India. Education as holistic. Let us begin. Early Indian education aimed at the full development of a person, including truth, patience, humility, discipline, and a deep reverence for life. Let me explain. This holistic view meant that character mattered just as much as knowledge. A truly educated person was expected to be honest, humble, and self-controlled, and not merely well-informed. So learning, in this vision, was really the shaping of the whole human being. Dharma in student life. Now let us see what was expected of a student. Students were trained to fulfill their duties towards their parents, their teachers, and the divine. Moral conduct stood at the very center of their lives. Let me explain with a famous teaching. Matri Devo Bhava, Pitri Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, which means treat your mother, your father, and your teacher as gods. This beautiful idea captures how respect and gratitude were woven into the very act of study. Right living was seen as the true fruit of education. Subjects of study. Let us look at what students actually learned. They studied the Vedas, grammar, logic, philosophy, and ethics, and also mathematics, science, medicine, and astronomy, as well as the arts, crafts, and martial skills. Let me explain what this tells us. This wide curriculum shows that ancient learning was never narrow. A single student might move between sacred texts, reasoning, numbers, and practical skills. In fact, India's early strength in mathematics and astronomy grew out of exactly this broad, curiosity-driven tradition. Yoga and meditation. Education went even deeper than books. It also included yoga, meditation, and service to the guru. It prepared students for life itself, and not only for work. Let me explain. Practices like yoga and meditation trained the mind to be calm and focused, while serving the guru taught humility and responsibility. And so, schooling built inner strength and good habits, not just the ability to earn a living. Guru Śhiṣhya Parampara. Finally, let us understand the sacred bond at the heart of it all. The relationship between teacher and student, the Guru Śhiṣhya Parampara, was considered sacred. The guru guided the student from ignorance towards knowledge. Let me explain the beautiful meaning of the word itself. Guru was understood as the one who leads us from darkness, which is gu, into light, which is ru. Because knowledge was passed on personally and with such great trust, the bond between teacher and student was treated as one of the most sacred relationships in all of society. Next, we will step inside the ancient Gurukulas and the great universities of early India, and then begin to explore its vast literary heritage. Gurukula life. Let us begin. In the Gurukula, students lived together with their teacher and followed disciplined daily routines. Let me explain what life there was like. Rising early, studying their lessons, and sharing in the everyday chores, the students learned self-reliance, equality, and a genuine respect for work, no matter what family background they came from. Indeed, they were treated like members of the teacher's own family. What a wonderful way to learn not just subjects, but life itself. Ancient centers of learning. Now let us visit the great centers of learning. Famous centers such as Takṣhaśhilā, Nālandā, Vallabhi, Vikramshīla, and Kanchipuram, among others, attracted students from many regions. Let me explain how remarkable these were. Some of them, and especially Nālandā, grew into vast residential universities, with thousands of students and teachers, great libraries, and grand lecture halls. They drew scholars from right across Asia. This shows us that early India was, in truth, a major international center of learning. We know much of this from the travel accounts of the Chinese pilgrim Xuanzang. Takṣhaśhilā. Let us look more closely at one of these centers. Takṣhaśhilā was a large learning center with well-organized urban features such as housing, drainage, and waste management. Let me explain its importance. Located in the northwest of the subcontinent, it was especially famous for advanced studies, including medicine. In fact, tradition links great figures with it, such as the renowned physician Charaka and the brilliant statesman Kautilya, who is also known as Chanakya. So this was a place where some of the finest minds of the ancient world once studied and taught. Literary heritage. Now we begin a rich new theme, the literary heritage of early India. Early India produced works in grammar, medicine, law, and ethics, in poetry, in Tamil literature, in philosophy, and in science. Let me explain what this shows. This rich and varied output, in both Sanskrit and Tamil, reveals a civilization deeply devoted to knowledge. Careful thinkers wrote lasting works that shaped Indian culture for many centuries, and a great number of them are still studied and loved even today. Sanskrit grammar texts. Let us begin with the science of language. Pāṇini's Ashtadhyayi, Pingala's Chandashastra, and Patanjali's Mahabhashya are foundational works on Sanskrit grammar, on meter, and on the study of language. Let me explain why one of these is so celebrated. Pāṇini's grammar, in particular, is admired even today for its astonishing precision and its almost mathematical structure. In fact, it has gone on to influence both modern linguistics and even computer science. Just imagine, a work of grammar from ancient India, still guiding scholars in our own digital age. Next, we will explore the great law books, medical works, and poetry of early India, and then turn to the foundation of its economy, agriculture. Smriti literature. Let us begin with the law books. Texts such as the Manu Smriti, the Yajnavalkya Smriti, the Narada Smriti, and the Vishnu Smriti dealt with dharma, with law, and with ethics. Let me explain their role. These Smriti works acted as guidebooks on duty, on social rules, and on justice for the times in which they were written. Now, here is an important point to remember. They reflect the ideals and the debates of particular periods, and their rules were interpreted and indeed changed over the centuries. So we must always read them thoughtfully and in their historical context. Classical medicine. Let us now turn to the healing arts. The Charaka Samhita and the Suśhruta Samhita were two very important medical works. They reveal advanced traditions of knowledge. Let me explain the difference between them. The Charaka Samhita focused on diagnosis and on medicine, while the Suśhruta Samhita described surgery in remarkable detail, including actual operations and surgical instruments. This is clear evidence that ancient Indian medicine, known as Ayurveda, was highly developed indeed. Just think, detailed surgery described so many centuries ago. Sanskrit poetry. Now let us enjoy the beauty of poetry. Kālidāsa's Raghuvangsha and Kumara Sambhava are wonderful examples of classical Sanskrit poetry, or kavya. Let me tell you a little about this great poet. Kālidāsa is often ranked among the very greatest of all Sanskrit poets. He is also celebrated for his play, the Abhijñāna Shakuntalam, and his works are treasured for their beautiful imagery, drawn so tenderly from nature and from human emotion. To read Kālidāsa is to see the ancient world come alive in words. Tamil literary heritage. Let us not forget the glory of Tamil literature. Great works such as the Tirukkural, the Silappadicaram, the Manimekalai, and the Sangam texts discuss love, war, society, politics, and economy. Let me explain with a special word about one of them. The Tirukkural, composed by the sage Tiruvalluvar, is an especially beloved Tamil classic. It offers short but powerful verses on virtue, on wealth, and on love. Verses that people still quote to this very day. This shows us the great depth and the lasting appeal of early Tamil literature. Agriculture as the economic base. Now we begin a very practical theme, the economy, starting with agriculture. Agriculture was the very backbone of the economy. It supported the villages, people's livelihoods, and the revenue of the state. Let me explain why it mattered so much. Since most people were farmers, the health of the harvest decided the prosperity of the whole society. Good crops meant full granaries, thriving trade, and a rich treasury. But a famine could shake even the most powerful of kingdoms. So everything, in the end, rested upon the land and its harvest. Next, we will see how the state managed agriculture and land revenue, the many crops that were grown, and how carefully farming was understood. Mauryan economic administration. Let us begin with the Mauryas. The Mauryan state carefully regulated economic activity, including land use, agriculture, forests, and revenue. Let me explain how detailed this was. Village land included individual holdings, common pastures, and groves. Forests were cleared for expansion, while some categories of forest remained legally protected. The state even set up special protected forests and settled new farming villages on the cleared land. All of this shows just how carefully the Mauryan government planned and supervised the economy. We learn much of this from Kautilya's Arthaśhāstra. Land revenue. Now let us look at taxation. The basic land tax was usually 1/6 of the produce, and this revenue funded the entire state. Let me explain. This share, which was called the bāga, was collected in grain, and later sometimes in cash. It paid for the army, the officials, public works, and welfare. And because it was a fixed and predictable tax, it also helped the farmers to know, well in advance, exactly what they owed. Fairness and predictability, you see, benefited everyone. Land classification. Let us look at how land was sorted. Kautilya classified land into several types: cultivated land, wasteland, dry land, sown fields, and groves, all for the purposes of assessment and management. Let me explain the value of this. By sorting land into clear types, officials could tax each kind fairly according to what it actually produced. And they could plan how to bring wasteland under the plough. This is an early and excellent example of systematic land records and revenue planning. Careful record-keeping, even then, was the key to good government. Crops. Let us see what the farmers grew. Their crops included rice, pulses, wheat, linseed, mustard, saffron, sugarcane, and a variety of vegetables and fruits. Let me explain what this variety tells us. It shows that farmers grew food grains, oilseeds, cash crops, and garden produce, carefully adjusting to the soil and the climate of each region. And this rich variety made the rural economy both productive and reasonably secure. If one crop should fail, others might still succeed. Milinda Pañño and farming. Here is a fascinating source. The Buddhist text known as the Milinda Pañño, traditionally attributed to the monk Nagasena, describes 8 stages of agricultural work, from preparing and weeding the fields right through to harvesting and winnowing. This shows a detailed knowledge of farming. Let me explain why it appears in such a text. The Milinda Pañño uses these familiar farming steps as examples to help explain its deeper ideas. And that tells us something lovely, that careful, methodical agriculture was a completely normal and a respected part of everyday life. Next, we will look at regional farming, and then at the vital art of irrigation, which kept the fields green and the kingdoms prosperous. Cotton in the Deccan. Let us begin in the Deccan. The Deccan's rich black soil supported the cultivation of cotton. So we see that regional geography directly influenced agricultural production. Let me explain. The Deccan's fertile black soil, which is called rega, holds moisture very well, and this makes it ideal for growing cotton. And that is precisely why the region became such an important source of cotton and of cotton textiles for trade. The very soil beneath their feet shaped the livelihoods of the people. Sangam agriculture. Now let us travel to the Tamil land. Sangam literature describes its fertility, and crops such as ragi, sugarcane, jackfruit, pepper, and turmeric. Let me explain something beautiful about how it does this. The Sangam poems lovingly divide the Tamil land into different landscapes, which are called tinais: the hills, the forests, the farmland, the coast, and the dry country, each with its own crops and its own way of life. This shows us just how closely early Tamil society was tied to its natural environment. Nature and daily life were woven together as one. Irrigation. Now we begin a most important theme: irrigation. Irrigation was absolutely essential for agriculture. Reservoirs, canals, dams, lakes, and tanks all helped to store and to distribute the precious water. Let me explain why this mattered so deeply. Because the rainfall was often seasonal and uneven, storing water for the dry months was truly crucial. And so, building and maintaining tanks and canals was seen as a great public service. Indeed, both kings and village assemblies took real pride in this noble work. Sudarshana Lake. Let us look at a famous example. The Junagadh inscription records a dam that was built on the Sudarshana Lake by an officer named Pushyagupta under Chandragupta Maurya. Let me explain why this lake is so remarkable. It was later repaired by rulers of several different dynasties across many, many centuries. This makes Sudarshana a striking example of just how important water storage was, and of how the duty to maintain it was passed carefully from one government to the next. One lake cared for by ruler after ruler over hundreds of years. Irrigation and state revenue. Let us understand the wisdom behind all this effort. States cared so deeply about irrigation because agriculture generated their revenue. Better water systems simply meant better production. Let me explain the connection plainly. Water management and state income were directly linked. By investing in dams, canals, and tanks, the rulers increased the harvests, and this, in turn, filled the treasury. So irrigation was, at once, both good economics and good welfare. In caring for the water, the state cared for both its people and itself. Next, we will marvel at an ancient engineering wonder, and then explore the busy world of trade and commerce in early India. The Grand Anicut. Let us begin with a true marvel. The Grand Anicut, also known as the Kalani, is linked with the Chola king Karikala. It supported agriculture, and remarkably, it remains important even today. Let me explain why this is so extraordinary. Built across the river Kaveri, it is one of the oldest water diversion structures still in use anywhere in the entire world. It redirects the river's water to irrigate the fertile delta. What a remarkable feat of ancient engineering, one that shaped the prosperity of the Tamil country and still serves the farmers of today. Trade and commerce. Now, let us enter the world of trade. Trade expanded as organized states began to provide infrastructure, to protect the routes, and to regulate the markets. Let me explain how it all connected. These networks had their roots in the old Harappan trade, and they later linked inland centers with the ports, allowing goods, people, and ideas to circulate freely. As states kept the roads safe and the markets fair, merchants could travel farther and with greater confidence. And so, trade linked distant regions together, spreading not only products, but also languages, beliefs, and skills. The Arthaśhāstra on trade. Let us see what was traded. The Arthaśhāstra lists trade in textiles, gems, coral and pearls, and also in metals, minerals, and salt. Let me explain what this list reveals. It shows that early India traded in both everyday necessities and in costly luxuries. And it shows that the state kept a very close watch on valuable goods, setting standards, fixing some prices, and collecting duties. So, trade was not a free-for-all. It was carefully overseen, so that it might benefit the whole kingdom. State regulation of salt. Now let us look at one humble but vital commodity, salt. Salt was so important that it was regulated by the state. This shows us that essential commodities were of great economic significance. Let me explain the reasoning. Because everyone needed salt, and because it could not be produced everywhere, controlling its manufacture and its sale gave the state both a steady revenue and a way to ensure a fair supply for all. It was an early recognition of just how vital the most basic commodities truly are. Consumer protection. Here is something that may surprise you. The state actually tried to prevent adulteration and unfair practices. This protected the consumers, and it supported trust in the markets. Let me explain. The Arthaśhāstra prescribes the checking of weights and measures and the punishing of cheating traders. This shows us that consumer protection and honest trade are not only modern concerns. In fact, they were taken very seriously in ancient India too. Fairness in the marketplace, you see, is a truly ancient value. Next, we will travel the great trade routes of early India, the roads of the north and south, and sail out to its busy ports and across the ocean. Dakshinapatha. Let us begin with the Great Southern Road. The Dakshinapatha was a major southern trade route connecting regions right across the subcontinent. Let me explain its name and importance. The name itself means the Southern Road. It linked the Gangetic north with the Deccan and with the peninsula beyond. And so important was this route that in time the whole southern region came to be known by this very name. We read of it in the early Buddhist and Sanskrit texts. Uttarapatha. Now let us turn to the Great Northern Road. The Uttarapatha was a major northern trade route. It connected important cities, markets, and cultural centers. Let me explain. Its name means the Northern Road. It ran across the northern plains, towards the northwest, and even beyond, linking India all the way to Central Asia. And great cities, such as Takṣhaśhilā and Mathura, grew wealthy and famous along its length. To control this road was to command the trade of the north. Trade routes as cultural routes. Here is a truly beautiful idea. The trade routes moved not only goods, but also people, skills, beliefs, languages, and ideas. Let me explain what this meant. The merchants, the pilgrims, and the scholars who traveled these roads helped to spread religions such as Buddhism, along with styles of art and all kinds of useful knowledge, far and wide across the land. And so we can see that these trade routes were also, in truth, the great highways of culture. Along them travelled not just cargo, but civilization itself. Ports. Let us now sail to the coast. Ports such as Muziris, Kaveripattinam, Arikamedu, and Masulipatnam connected India with the world of maritime trade. Let me explain how busy these harbours were. At a great port like Muziris, on the Kerala coast, Indian spices, textiles, and gems were exchanged for foreign goods and coins. And the discovery of Roman coins and pottery at these very sites confirms just how far this sea trade truly reached. We learn of this from the periplus of the Erythraean Sea and from the finds at Arikamedu. Indian Ocean Trade. Let us cross the ocean itself. Maritime trade used both coastal and overseas routes, and by the early centuries of the Common Era, India was trading significantly with distant Rome. Let me explain the scale of it. Indian pepper, spices, fine cotton, and gems were in such great demand in Rome that large amounts of Roman gold flowed back to India in return. And the sailors cleverly used the seasonal monsoon winds to cross the vast Indian Ocean quickly. Just imagine those ships, riding the monsoon, carrying the treasures of India to the far-off Roman world. Next, we will glimpse trade through a Tamil epic, and then discover the powerful world of the guilds, the craft and trade associations of early India. Silappadicaram. Roots. Let us begin with a beautiful epic. The Silappadicaram mentions the routes linking Kanchipuram to Pumpuhar and on to Kanyakumari, showing us the southern trade connections. Let me explain why this is so valuable to historians. This Tamil epic gives us a vivid picture of a bustling port city and of its merchants, and so it helps historians to see just how lively and how well connected trade really was in the early Tamil country. Through the story, the ancient roads and harbours come alive once more. Guilds. Now let us meet the guilds. Guilds, which were called shrenis, were associations of traders, artisans, and merchants who worked in the same profession. Let me explain how they grew. They expanded along with the Mahajanapadas. Silver punch-marked coins were circulating, and the Jataka literature refers to as many as 18 kinds of guilds, which shows us just how important they had become. By joining together, people in the same trade could set standards, train newcomers, buy their materials in bulk, and speak with one strong voice to the rulers. This made the guilds powerful economic and social institutions indeed. Guilds and quality control. Let us see what else the guilds did. The guilds regulated goods, prices, and professional conduct. In this way, they protected both the artisans and the consumers. Let me explain how. By fixing fair prices and clear rules of quality, and by disciplining any dishonest members, the guilds kept both the craftsmen and the customers satisfied. In a way, they were rather like our modern trade associations and quality control bodies, all combined into one. Fairness and good workmanship were their watchwords. Guild courts. Here is a remarkable fact. The guilds even had their own guild courts, which enforced discipline and standards among the members. This shows that these economic organizations held real internal authority. Let me explain. The members were expected to follow the guild's rules, and the guild itself could settle disputes and punish any wrongdoing on its own. This power of self-regulation shows us that the guilds were trusted, well-organized bodies with genuine authority over their trades. They governed themselves wisely and firmly. Guilds 06 as banks. Now here is something quite surprising. The guilds also worked as banks, as financiers, and as trustees. They could receive deposits and even pay interest. Let me explain how this worked. People, and even kings, deposited their money with reputable guilds. The guild would then lend it out, or use the interest for some agreed purpose, such as maintaining a temple. So you see, the guilds performed many of the very same functions as our modern banks. We learn of this from cave inscriptions that record such endowments. Next, we will look at real inscriptions that reveal the power of the guilds and the pride of the craftsmen, and then begin to gather together the great lessons of this chapter. The Nashik cave inscription. Let us begin with a famous inscription. The Nashik cave inscription from the 2nd century of the Common Era belongs to the Shaka king Nahapana and his son-in-law Ushavadatta. It records money that was deposited with the weavers' guilds in order to support Buddhist monasteries. This proves that the guilds had real financial roles. Let me explain how it worked. The deposit was a kind of permanent endowment. The guild kept the sum and used the regular interest from it to feed and clothe the monks. This shows us just how trusted and how stable the guilds were as financial institutions. Why guilds were trusted? Let us pause to ask an important question. Why were the guilds so trusted? The guilds were trusted because they were organized, stable, wealthy, and professionally regulated. Let me explain the heart of it. Because a guild outlived any single one of its members, and because it always followed known and settled rules, people felt safe depositing their money with it or placing their orders with it. So, in the end, reliability and reputation were the real sources of a guild's strength. Trust, you see, was their greatest asset of all. Sanchi ivory workers. Here is a wonderful example of craftsman's pride. An inscription on the southern gateway of the Great Stupa at Sanchi records that ivory workers from the town of Vidisha carved the stone sculptures on its gateways and railings. This shows craft guilds supporting artistic production, public welfare, and religious patronage. Let me explain what is so striking about it. It is remarkable that skilled ivory carvers also worked in stone, and that they proudly recorded their gift for all to see. This tells us that the artisans took great pride in their craft, and that they used their skill and their wealth to support religion and to beautify the public monuments of their time. Textile centers. Let us look at the great centers of cloth. Cities such as Mathura, Kashi, and Kamarupa became famous textile hubs. Silk, cotton, wool, and linen were all important products. Let me explain. Different regions became known for their particular fabrics, and fine Indian cloth was prized both at home and in distant markets far away. And so textile production became a major source of employment, of wealth, and of trade. The looms of India, you might say, clothed much of the ancient world. Chapter conclusion. Now let us begin to draw our lessons together. This chapter has shown us that early India had dynamic political institutions, social structures, an economy, education, ethics, and culture. Let me explain the key word here, and that word is dynamic. For nothing stayed frozen. Ideas about kingship, about society, and about knowledge kept on developing and changing. And this is exactly why early India was both deeply rooted in tradition and yet constantly changing and growing, all at the same time. Next, we will bring our chapter to a close, gathering its greatest themes: continuity, the growth of the state, the economy, and the spread of knowledge and devotion. The continuity of Indian civilization. Let us reflect on a great theme. Despite all the political change, many cultural, social, and political traditions simply continued, on and on. This continuity is one of the major themes of the whole chapter. Let me explain. Even as dynasties rose and fell, things like Dharma, the village assemblies, the festivals, and the traditions of learning all carried on. And this is precisely why Indian civilization shows such a remarkable blend of change at the very top and deep continuity underneath. The surface shifted, but the roots held firm. From jhana to empire. Let us trace the great journey of political growth. Political organization developed, step by step, from clans led by rajas into kingdoms, republics, and finally the great empires, such as the Mauryas, the Guptas, and the Cholas. Let me explain why this matters. This long journey, from small, kin-based groups all the way to vast, well-administered empires, is one of the main storylines of the entire chapter. And if you draw it out as a simple timeline, you can clearly see how the state grew, in both size and complexity, over the long centuries. Economy and society together. Let us see how everything was connected. Agriculture, irrigation, trade routes, ports, and guilds all shaped society. Economic life supported both political and cultural growth. Let me explain the deep connection. In other words, the wealth created by the farmers, the traders, and the craftsmen, this was what paid for the armies, the temples, the schools, and the art. And so, a strong economy was, in truth, the hidden engine behind all the political power and all the cultural achievement of early India. Knowledge and bhakti across regions. Let us look at how ideas travelled. Knowledge traditions and devotional practices spread widely across the regions, and in doing so, they connected different communities together culturally. Let me explain. As scholars, saints, and sacred texts travelled along the trade and pilgrimage routes, ideas and forms of worship were shared between the north and the south. And this helped to weave the subcontinent's many different communities into one broad, shared, common culture. Knowledge and devotion, you see, became threads that bound the whole land together. The final teaching summary. And now, let us gather the whole story into one. We can understand this chapter as a story of gradual growth. Families became clans, clans became territories, territories became kingdoms and empires, while ethics, knowledge, trade, and culture gave society its lasting continuity. Let me leave you with the real lesson. Try to see the big picture, rather than only memorizing names and dates. For the true lesson is this: how people gradually built larger and more organized communities, all held together by shared values, by learning, and by exchange. And this became the very foundation upon which all of later Indian history was built. Occasions, and that brings us to the end of today's lesson. To sum up, early Indian education shaped the whole person through the sacred bond of guru and student. A magnificent literary heritage flourished in both Sanskrit and Tamil. The economy rested upon agriculture, irrigation, trade, and the powerful guilds. And, in the end, the story of early India is one of gradual growth, held together by shared values, knowledge, and exchange. And with that, we complete our journey through this entire chapter. Well done, everyone. You have worked wonderfully hard. We will continue in the next lesson.
Class 9 and 10 students, don't worry, make science and social science easy with your CBSE teacher. Subscribe now, like, comment, and press the bell.
Large empires needed organized administration. Province, districts, cities, and villages were managed by officers and local assemblies, especially under systems like the Choros.
Some objects move slowly, while others move incredibly fast. Scientists measure speed by comparing distance traveled with time taken. Average speed tells us how much distance an object covers every second. The greater the distance covered in the same time, the greater the speed. Welcome to Grade 9, where learning becomes an exciting adventure. Watch until the end to understand every textbook concept clearly. Like, comment, and subscribe for daily lessons. Visit rehanstudio.com for new Syllabus practice questions, revision resources, and exam preparation.